Connection. As soon as we began and we were walking around and she asked us to use our eyes, so we have eyes in our back, the immediate impression from that was connection with my body, connection with me. And I just started crying. Connection with something so special, something so precious that we neglect a lot. And beyond that, the people in the room and the wider world beyond us.
I feel very connected with the group, and not just the dancers, but also with the people weaving through the space with the camera, and also the space around us.
It was a very joyful time. There was a lot of connection between people, which was very nice. I didn't get the sense of anybody not being part of it, or anybody being uncomfortable or being coerced into anything they didn't want to do. Just a feeling of joyous communication, people, bodies dancing together.
There was a connection. I think there was definitely something there which I was reacting to their movements. I think I was aware of them reacting to me to a degree, but then I was definitely trying to follow movements. If there was something like a hand would come across, I would try and follow that across. So I was trying to obviously do shots which kept a little bit of energy inside them, but also kind of hold a frame and have people pass through it and exit the frame as well.
For me, it started with connecting to my own body, connecting to our breath first and connected to our movement patterns in a very slow way. And this for me is a key for connecting to others, because towards the end I could really see a lot of connection happening between people.
There was a really deep connection, but when I say connection, I don't mean connection just between people, but the way people try to first of all connect with themselves, and then it feels like they're in a better space to connect with others.
And I think the key there was that there was a connection to our own bodies in the beginning.
And I think that was important, looking back on it. Like, it was important to have that slowness to get into it.
It's the creative connection of the physical movement. It's not a connection of values or ideals or political ideology, because I have no idea of any of that. It's a sort of connection on a very physical, basic, non-verbal level.
This was not just an individual dance. This was a group working together to create a piece together, or to respond from one another. They were deeply aware that what they could do through their own body, but what others could do and how they could connect through their dancing.
It felt very natural. It didn't feel engineered in any way. It just, that connection was encouraged.
I was trying to not try and get too much up in people's faces, not be too obtrusive, but at the same time wanting to have an intimacy with them. That was very important to me, that you kind of kept that closeness, and you were able to focus on some of the intimacy.
It feels like when two people are dancing together, there is this new thing that gets created. It's like a new form, blending of the energies, I guess.
I think there's something in it that like reaches out to the viewer.
The dancers are opening their soul. They're kind of they're inviting the camera. So I didn't feel that intrusive. I felt actually invited, and I thought that what I can do is to show the beauty I can see in front of me. It's kind of, maybe I focused on the beauty that I could see in front of me.
There's a sort of integrated component of connectivity where the parts are all sort of shared and woven in with each other. And I felt that as the viewer too, that it doesn't exist like by itself as an object.
Obviously there are no dancers here today, but sort of in my mind's eye I was visualizing not necessarily a dance routine or anything specific, but more the impression you get from certain movements, the impression you get from certain speed of movements, and kind of trying to just use those as a bit of an anchor in a very amorphous esoteric way.
I don't know if it means you could have a sort of meaningful friendship with any of these people, but you can have a meaningful physical connection with them when you dance, and a meaningful creative connection.
When I'm recording sound for television documentary, for example, I have to know when to be quiet, I have to know when to be involved with a contributor, to engage with them in terms of putting microphones and things like that on. So, you know, I know when to develop a rapport with somebody and when to kind of step back. And I always try to be sort of not overly present when filming. So I try and avoid eye contact with people.
You kind of make eye contact with someone else, and then you sort of are able to you know, have this sort of connection that maybe I wasn't expecting, because I was like, originally coming into the room, I was like, oh, we'll just all be doing our own thing in the same room. But it was really nice to be able to like hold someone's hand and move with them.
I think physical touch is so powerful, especially as you get older, and especially if you live on your own. That kind of touch that comes with no strings, so you can just give in to it and yield to it. I think it's just such a gift.
In my mind, I was thinking, okay, they don't know each other, but they're like interacting, and that's part of what's happening in there, was part of at least the meaning I was assigning it. A shot that comes to mind is the two hands, like you can see the two hands and they're not touching, and it kind of is like you want them to touch, but there's an intimacy in the hands and then one of them moves.
Yeah, I felt a real connection with people's hands. I could quite easily have been part of that physically. I wanted to reach my hand out and be part of that touch, which was nice, yeah.
I felt like there'd been like something that was very emotional, and that was made even more so because of the contact and the body contact with other dancers, because usually when you're dancing you're trying not to get in people's way. It was really nice that you could actually come into contact with people and maybe feel what they were feeling as well.
It's about letting go, and a lot about listening and being in the present. But I think it's really about the subtle listening that has to happen in contact, so that it's really connected. And from that space of connection and safety, you can create beautiful things.
I did feel like I had very much had a physical relationship with the people in that room, and a physical connection to them, because we were sort of moving together. We were working together to, I was working together to avoid making physical contact, and of course they were working together sometimes in that vein, and at other times in a more contact way.
Making those new connections, and some of them were in a larger group context, and then some of those connections were really kind of intimate and one-on-one, and they kept popping up, and that was a really nice experience.
I went in and out of connectivity with people where we were moving through the space more. I feel like I engaged with the room and with the people more. When we slowed down, I was more into myself. I think I didn't have to be as aware of what was happening around me.
You were reacting to things rather than maybe thinking about it. So my feelings are quite hard to recall maybe. I just remember that it was a lot of fun.
They really seemed to be playing with each other almost, especially the moment where the three dancers come into contact with each other and they're smiling beforehand, and you're going, oh, are they going to come into contact with each other? And they eventually do, and they share this moment where they can dance together rather than just on their own.
You float in and out of connection with people, so it's not any specific connection.
Peripheral vision, so it's peripheral vision with my senses. I can feel their movement and their being and their sensitivities, their emotional body.
It wasn't just pleasure from one moving body, it was interacting with others, and that as someone that does sport, that's quite resonant within myself. The idea of running on your own, it's great, it's enjoyable, you move through the landscape like the dancers were moving through the hall, but at the same time when you come up into contact with others, you're also moving with them, and it's really enjoyable the way you negotiate that space together, and that's what I could see from them. So a lot of pleasure, I guess, from that.